for his individual amendments.
Senator Zubiri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, may I ask the sponsor if he'll kindly take in consideration one amendment?
Of course, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the onset, of course, I'd like to say that we're in full support of this program, free Wi-Fi for our people, especially on for the urban poor and rural poor that have no access to Wi-Fi. But also, I'd like to state for the record, Mr. President, that we are also pushing for public health and safety for the people in the light of the fact that the recent studies have shown that EMF radiation possibly can cause cancer or is a possible carcinogenic under the World Health Organization report, new report from the WHO. So, Mr. President, if the good sponsor will allow, an amendment on section, a new section rather, that will read as follows. Section 8, protection of public health. And it would read, the DOH, the DICT, and the telecommunications company shall ensure the protection of public health from harmful or hazardous effects of electromagnetic field or EMF radiation and other radioactive materials of telecommunication infrastructure and facilities, such as, but not limited to relay stations, repeaters, boosters, and telecommunication towers, period. The construction of the above-mentioned telecommunication facilities shall be within a safe distance or a provision of buffer zones from residential areas, public buildings, public parks, and recreational facilities, and densely populated areas, period. Finally, such facilities shall also bear warning signages or signage that close and constant contact with such facilities is harmful or hazardous to health, and renumber the affected succeeding sections, if it's all right.
We accept, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. That's all.
Wait a minute. Any objection? Senator Recto?
Just a clarification, I was listening to the amendment, and it would appear na posibleng bawal na ilagay all these facilities in all these areas.
Well,
It could be a killer amendment to the purpose of the bill, Mr. President.
hindi naman po. What we want to happen is there's designated Wi-Fi areas. What you don't want to happen, sir, is if like in a park, kami sa park namin, meron pong mapakalakas na repeater station dyan ng isang telecommunications company that we are now complaining about because it is sending EMF signals all throughout the park which our children play. And my child, I have a 2-year-old that plays there every day. So we are exposing these children to possible leukemia and other blood and cancer diseases with prolonged exposure. So ang request na natin, Mr. President, the idea is to come up with designated areas. So within the park, this corner is the Wi-Fi zone. Kasi pwede naman po nila, depending on the strength of the Wi-Fi, you can actually limit it to like within a radius of 100 meters, within a radius of 200 meters. Wag lang po yung blast, how do you say, Wi-Fi that even those who don't want to be exposed to this EMF radiation have no choice. And these are areas that are always frequented by the public. So I hope the good gentleman understands my point.
Mr. President, for example, in an airport facility, free public Wi-Fi or in the MRT, LRT, bawal na ba yun?
Hindi naman. Pag may
Based on that
signage naman po,
amendment.
Mr. President, it says here naman, as long as the signages are present, that this is a Wi-Fi area, and that, as I said, no, together with the DOH and DICT, they have to come up with the particular wordings to show that
My
this is a
only
Wi-Fi
problem,
area.
Mr. President, it is an additional red tape. If will that require now a permit from the Department of Health?
No, Mr. President. If I may enter the fray, there's no permit from the Department of Health, but during the IRR, the DOH, upon its determination, can determine safe areas. No, the danger of these transmitters is really yet to be fully determined, Mr. President.
Yes, and that's my point. If we don't know, if there's no empirical data yet, and
Mr.
we're
President.
incorporating that in the bill,
Well, Mr. President, no, and I don't want to speak for Senator Zubiri, but my understanding is that if ever there is empirical data that show that there is a danger zone, that we just make sure that people are away from that danger zone. But currently, there's no empirical data yet on the danger of these transmitters, unless it's very, very close.
Actually, Mr. President, no, I don't want to go into the debate. But if you go on the internet now and you Google, there's probably 1,000 articles on empirical data on EMF radiation. As a matter of fact, that's the reason why Green Meadows does not have a tower of any telecommunications company, because when they put one 10 years ago, they developed 45 cases of cancer in the direct line of the EMF towers. 20 of those already died, and 25 are fighting for their lives. I can show you in a hearing, which I will be hearing, because I think it's a Consumer Protection Act, and we will show you the number of cases now, and one in Cebu, where there are actually cancer clusters right below an EMF tower. Yung akin, Mr. President, is just to warn the people. We're not going to stop Wi-Fi. We're not going to stop the technology. What we want to do is, in the areas where they boost the signal, let's put the signages that these areas are quite, are where the signal, existing EMF radiation is being boosted out.
So for example, let's work that out here in the Senate. We have Wi-Fi here right now. So where should that sign be?
Where the Wi-Fi routers are, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President. So where the Wi-Fi routers are, we can put a sign there that these areas are emitting, this is to the area where it's transmitting all the Wi-Fi. And you can put a warning sign there if you want.
And what should it be? It's 100 meters from that Wi-Fi transmitter.
That's to be determined. That's why it has to be determined by the DOH and the ICT on the proper distance.
Yeah, my problem is that, the purpose of the bill is to provide internet access. And in certain areas, Wi-Fi connectivity. In schools, for example, in public hospitals, in plazas and parks, in ports, airports, so on and so forth. Now, if we're saying that this is harmful, then let's find out whether or not it is really actually harmful.
I personally believe it's very harmful, Mr. President. And the problem is whenever you discuss this with people, especially in the subdivisions, they'll always say, no, we want the cell site signal. And then when you tell them, okay, can we put it in front of your house? No, we don't want it in front of our house. So everything's okay unless it's not in your backyard. The thing is, we're exposing the public to, I personally feel, what could be dangerous and harmful EMF radiation. It's like microwave. It's a microwave technology. So in the United States now, empirical data has found out that it's coming close to the #1 cause of death in the US is cancer. And they're now trying to figure it out. Is it because they microwave all their food? Is it because they have Wi-Fi access in everywhere they go?
Mr. President.
20 years ago, if I may, Mr. President, 30 years ago, people didn't think that smoking while you're pregnant was a bad thing. It's only now that they realized that actually smoking while you're pregnant can actually cause birth defects for children. So my worry is, we all have children, whether they're teenagers or very young children. We want to have a safe area for them to work and play. And that is what I'm asking is, Mr. President, is that we take note on the law that there's protection for public health. It's not a, I don't think it's an amendment that will kill the law, but basically it's an amendment that will ask the ICT and the DOH to come up with Wi-Fi zones and put signages. That is the idea of the amendment, and not to stifle or slow down the idea of the law.
It's acceptable, Mr. President, for us, no? Because one, it provides signages, which is already in another provision. And secondly, it allows for the DOH to designate areas if in the future we find out that indeed there is harm. No? The DOH's official position, Mr. President, is that it's not harmful, by the way. But as Senator Zubiri had said, this might change in the future. So this provision is there such that if there ever does come a time when the DOH changes its official position, at least it's ready, no, to designate safer areas.
Mr. President, I do not wish to delay the proceedings, but maybe we should amend the suspension to look at the proposed amendment, the actual language,
Yes,
Mr. President.
And before I declare suspension, as I understood the amendment, we are not going to put a signage because it is a Wi-Fi area. The signage is near the equipment, as I understood
Yes,
it. Near
that's
the
correct, Mr.
I think you mentioned repeater,
Yes, it's
booster,
repeaters,
and
boosters.
a tower.
Yes.
So that's where the sign is to be placed, right?
That's correct, Mr. President.
So the people will not be warned that this is a Wi-Fi area because what's the point in warning them?
Opo,
Tama?
opo.
Tama po ba yan? Okay. So there's a motion to suspend. Any objection? There being none, we suspend for a few minutes.